Welcome back to the deep dive. So today, I want to start by asking you to delete a specific file from your mental hard drive.
Oh, okay.
You know the image I'm talking about. It's that travel brochure version of Australia.
Right. The cute, fuzzy mascot.
The cute, fuzzy mascot, maybe a joey peeking out of the pouch, bouncing harmlessly across, I don't know, a golf course.
It is iconic.
Yeah.
And it's adorable. And according to this massive stack of research we have on the table today, it is effectively a lie.
A total fabrication. Because when you actually peel back the biology of the red kangaroo, that's Macropithecus rufus, you don't find a mascot. You find something that looks a lot more like a biological war machine.
That is not an exaggeration. We're looking at an animal engineered for one of the most hostile environments on the planet. And the theme that just kept popping up in the sources for me was this idea of living on the razor's edge.
Right. This isn't an animal that plays it safe. It's an animal that trades safety for just extreme performance. So our mission today is to reverse engineer this machine. We're going to look at the biomechanics, the combat strategy, the thermal engineering.
And to do that, we have 5 specific mysteries to solve.
Yeah.
These were the things in the reading that made me just stop and say, wait, that can't be right.
Exactly. Okay, first up, movement. Why do scientists claim the kangaroo's tail isn't a tail at all, but a fifth leg that does more mechanical work than the other 4 combined?
Which sounds impossible.
Right. Second, the physique. We have to talk about why male red kangaroos look like professional bodybuilders who skipped leg day. I mean, these huge biceps, massive chests. There is a specific evolutionary algorithm driving that.
It's a concept called positive allometry, and it explains a lot.
We'll definitely break that down. Third, the physics defiance. The data suggests they burn less energy the faster they hop.
How is that possible?
It breaks the laws of thermodynamics, as I understand them. Fourth, the violence. We're going to fact-check the whole disemboweling kick story and the bite force that supposedly rivals a grizzly bear.
Spoiler alert, the bite force data is actually terrifying.
And finally, the heat. How do you survive 40 degrees Celsius days without sweating? Turns out the answer involves a really gross but brilliant trick with their own forearms.
It is innovative. I will give them that.
So let's get into it. Segment 1, the hop. This is the kangaroo's trademark. But physiologically, it makes almost no sense.
It really is a metabolic anomaly. Think about you or me running, or a dog, or a horse. The rule is linear.
Sure.
If you run at 5 miles per hour, you burn X amount of fuel. If you speed up to 10, you burn significantly more. Your heart rate spikes, your oxygen consumption, your VO2 max, it shoots up.
That's cardio. You hit the gas pedal, you use more gas. Simple.
But the red kangaroo just throws that rule book out the window. The studies show that once they start hopping, their oxygen consumption stays nearly flat. Whether they are cruising at, say, 20 kilometers an hour or sprinting at 40, the metabolic cost is almost identical.
That sounds like a perpetual motion machine. How are they accelerating without burning more fuel?
Because they aren't using muscle to generate that extra speed. They're using elastic energy. The secret is in their Achilles tendons.
Okay, but humans have Achilles tendons. I have them. They don't make me run for free.
But yours are designed as levers. Theirs are designed as high-tech pogo sticks. These tendons are incredibly long and thick. When a kangaroo lands, gravity and its own body weight stretch those tendons out under immense tension.
So it's potential energy, like pulling back the rubber band on a slingshot.
Precisely. And just like that slingshot, when they take off for the next hop, that tendon snaps back, that recoil releases all that stored energy to power the jump.
So the muscles aren't doing the heavy lifting.
No, the passive elastic recoil is. One study we looked at showed the tendons can store 10 times as much energy as the muscles can even generate.
So they're recycling the energy from the previous landing to fund the next takeoff.
Yes. They are literally bouncing on biological springs. It makes them one of the most energy-efficient movers on land. But there is a catch, and it is a big one.
This goes back to your razor's edge comment, doesn't it?
It does. In engineering, there's a concept called the safety factor. It's a ratio. How much stress can a material take before it snaps versus how much stress does it actually take during normal use?
Okay, so like an elevator, the sign says max capacity 10 people. But the cable can probably hold 50.
Exactly.
The safety factor is high because you don't want it to snap if an 11th person gets on.
Right. In biological terms, most mammal tendons, yours, a dog's, a horse's, have a safety factor of roughly 4 to 8. We are over-engineered for safety. We have a huge buffer.
And the red kangaroo?
The research on large males shows they operate at a safety factor of roughly 1.1 to 2.
Wait, 1.1.
1.1.
That is basically zero margin for error.
It is terrifyingly low. They are hopping on the verge of catastrophic tendon failure. Every single time a large male hits top speed, his Achilles tendons are stretched to within a hair's breadth of their snapping point.
So if he makes a wrong move or steps in a pothole while sprinting...
Snap. Yeah. Game over. In fact, the biomechanics papers noted that if a 90-kilogram red kangaroo tried to accelerate as abruptly as, say, a small kangaroo rat, which has a high safety factor, its tendons would rupture immediately.
That puts a totally different spin on those nature documentaries. You see them bounding across the plains looking so graceful, but actually it's just high-stakes parkour.
They are pushing the biological machinery to the absolute limit of what physics allows. And interestingly, that high-risk hopping is only for high speeds.
Right.
When they slow down to graze, they can't use the bounce. The spring just doesn't work at low speeds.
Which brings us to mystery number 2, the fifth leg. I've seen them do this slow walk. It looks so clunky. They lean forward, put their little hands on the ground, and swing their legs through.
It's technically called pennipedal locomotion, 5-limbed walking. And for decades, biologists just assumed the tail was a counterweight, like a tightrope walker's pole, just for balance.
That seems like a reasonable assumption.
It was reasonable, but it was wrong. Recent studies used force plates, which are basically high-tech scales that measure push to analyze this walking gait. And the results were shocking.
Okay.
The tail isn't just balancing them, it's driving them.
And driving them how?
When they're in that tripod stance, hands and tail on the ground, the tail acts as a motor. It provides as much propulsive force to push the animal forward as the front and hind legs combined.
Wait. The tail pushes harder than the legs?
Yes, it acts like a hydraulic piston. Mechanically, it's doing the heavy lifting, and this explains the anatomy. If you dissect a kangaroo tail, metaphorically, it's not just bone and skin.
Right.
It possesses more than 20 vertebrae. But more importantly, it is packed with highly aerobic muscle fibers and mitochondria.
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. I do remember that from high school biology. So the tail is an energy-dense limb.
Exactly. It's a functional leg.
Yeah.
The reason they need it is that their front paws are actually structurally weak. They're evolved for grasping, for manipulating, not for bearing weight. They tire easily.
So the kangaroo effectively walks on its tail so its arms can rest. That is just bizarre engineering. It's a 5-legged animal that transforms into a 2-legged pogo stick, but only above 15 miles an hour.
It's a specialized tool for a specialized environment. But speaking of specialized tools, let's talk about those arms. Because while they might be weak for walking, they are definitely not weak for fighting.
This is the jacked fighter segment. I feel like every few months a photo goes viral of some kangaroo, like that famous one, Roger, that looks like he's been bench pressing Buicks.
Roger was a beast, 89 kilograms, pure muscle.
But why? Why the Schwarzenegger physique? You don't see gazelles with massive biceps. What is the evolutionary pressure there?
This is where we get into sexual selection, and that term I mentioned earlier, positive allometry.
Okay, break that down for us, no jargon.
Simply put, it means that as the animal gets bigger overall, certain body parts grow at a disproportionately faster rate.
Okay.
In female kangaroos, growth is isometric. Everything grows in proportion. A big female just looks like a bigger version of her younger self.
The males?
In males, once puberty hits, the genes governing the forearms and chest muscles just go into overdrive. They grow significantly faster than the rest of the body.
So a big male isn't just a scaled-up version of a small male. He's a different shape entirely. He becomes top-heavy.
Correct. And the reason is combat. Males wrestle to establish dominance and secure mating rights. It's not just about hopping, it's about grappling.
I see.
They use those massive forearms to grab a rival, lock them in a headlock, and shove them off balance.
It sounds like a bar fight.
It is exactly a bar fight. And the females are the audience. Studies suggest females are actually attracted to this muscular display. Males will even pose, flexing those muscles to intimidate rivals and impress females.
It's a signal.
It's an honest signal of genetic quality. He's saying, look at me. I can afford the calorie cost to build this massive upper body.
But the arms are just for the grapple, right? The real weapon, the legs.
The legs are the artillery. The combat stats in the source material are they're sobering. A single kick from a red kangaroo can deliver about 759 pounds of force.
759, that's roughly 344 kilograms.
And they are not wearing boxing gloves.
No.
No. The power is concentrated in the middle toe. It has a long blade-like claw. When they lean back on that strong tail, that fifth leg, and unleash a double kick, that claw acts like a chisel.
The myth is that they can disembowel a person or a dog.
It's biologically plausible. They can certainly slice open the abdominal wall of an opponent, which is why, if you look at the anatomy of the males, they have evolved a counter-defense.
A counter-defense.
The skin on a male kangaroo's belly is significantly thicker and reinforced compared to females or other parts of their own body.
A dermal shield.
Basically a natural flak jacket. Evolution knows they're going to get kicked in the gut by other males, so it armored the target zone.
That is incredible. It's an evolutionary arms race taking place on a single animal's body. And we haven't even mentioned the teeth.
We shouldn't overlook them. We think of kangaroos as grazers, munching on grass. But the sources highlight a bite force of 925 psi.
925 psi. Can you contextualize that?
That is comparable to a grizzly bear.
A grizzly bear.
Yeah.
For an animal that eats grass.
They don't use it for hunting. They use it for crushing tissue during those grappling matches. If the headlock doesn't work, they bite.
Wow.
But perhaps the most chilling behavior mentioned in the sources isn't what they do to each other, but what they do to predators.
You mean the drowning tactic?
Yes. If a dingo or a wild dog chases a kangaroo, the kangaroo will often flee toward water, a dam, a river. It will wade in until the water is chest deep.
Where it can stand on its tripod base, but the dog has to swim.
Exactly. And because the kangaroo has those jacked forearms, it will wait for the predator to swim out, grab it, and hold it underwater until it drowns.
That is calculated lethality, using the environment and its own anatomy to just turn the tables.
It's a survival strategy. And speaking of survival strategies involving predators, there's a fascinating case study involving the dingo fence.
The dingo fence, right, the longest fence in the world stretching across Australia to keep dingoes away from sheep.
Correct. But inadvertently, it created this massive natural experiment for kangaroos. You have populations of red kangaroos on the north side, where dingoes are present, and on the south side, which is dingo-free.
And a study compared the two groups. What did they find?
The young kangaroos on the north side, the dangerous side, grow significantly faster than those on the safe side.
They're speedrunning puberty.
In a way, dingoes prefer smaller prey. It's easier to take down a juvenile than a fully grown jack male with a dermal shield. So there's this massive evolutionary pressure to get out of that vulnerable weight window as fast as you possibly can.
So the presence of a predator literally changes the developmental timeline of the animal.
Yes. It's a real-time example of predation shaping biology. If you grow slow, you get eaten. If you grow fast, you survive to pass on those fast growth genes.
Amazing. Now, we've covered the movement, the muscles, the fighting, but none of that matters if you cook to death in the Australian sun. We're talking 40 degrees Celsius. That's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
And you have to remember, water is scarce. Humans sweat to cool down, but sweating loses a lot of water. Kangaroos just can't afford that luxury. They need a different solution.
So they use the gross solution.
The forearm lick. When a kangaroo gets hot, it starts moving and starts licking its forearms until they are soaking wet with saliva.
How does slobbering on your arm cool your whole body?
It comes down to anatomy again. The skin on the inner forearm is extremely thin, and right underneath it is a dense network of blood vessels.
Like a radiator in a car.
Exactly like a radiator. As the saliva evaporates into the dry desert air, it cools the skin. That cools the blood in those vessels. That cool blood then circulates back to the body's core, lowering the overall temperature.
It's evaporative liquid cooling.
It is. But it's risky. It relies on the animal being hydrated enough to produce that much saliva. As climate change increases drought conditions in the outback, this whole mechanism becomes a liability. If they run out of water, they can't cool down and they overheat.
It's another example of that razor's edge. High performance, but fragile.
That's the recurring theme, isn't it?
So let's try to synthesize this image. We started by saying, erase the cute mascot. What do we have now?
We have a creature with legs that act like high-tension springs, capable of recycling energy to just defy metabolic limits. We have a tail that functions as a high-powered motor for walking.
We have a male physique built for grappling, a dermal shield for armor, and a bite that rivals a bear.
And a cooling system that turns their arms into radiators.
It's a biological machine. But I want to go back to that safety factor one more time. You said they operate at a factor of 1.1 or 1.2. Why hasn't evolution fixed that? Why aren't their tendons thicker? Why aren't there horse-sized hopping kangaroos?
That is the ultimate so what of this deep dive. Why don't we see massive mega kangaroos today?
Yeah, a 1-ton hopper would be terrifying, but why doesn't it exist?
They used to exist, sort of. They're the senurines, the giant short-faced kangaroos. They grew to about 550 pounds. But the fossil evidence suggests something really interesting. They stopped hopping.
They got too big to bounce.
Physics caught up with them. As you get bigger, the stress on the tendons increases exponentially. The tendons required to hop at that weight would need to be impossibly thick, so they had to start walking bipedally, one foot in front of the other, like us.
So the red kangaroo isn't just a big kangaroo, it represents the limit.
That's the prevailing theory. The red kangaroo represents the biological ceiling of the hopping design. If you make a kangaroo any bigger than a large male red, the tendons can't handle the force required to hop. The safety factor drops below 1, and the machine breaks.
That's fascinating. They are the maximum viable product of this evolutionary blueprint.
They are the maximum capacity.
It really changes how you look at them. You see them standing in the desert, shimmering in the heat, and they look so still. But inside, everything is tuned to the absolute maximum.
Right. It's an evolutionary gamble that paid off, but it requires them to live constantly at the limit of biomechanical possibility.
1 kilogram heavier or 1 jump too fast, and the machine would break. That is a powerful thought to leave with. Next time you see a kangaroo on a nature documentary, don't just look at the pouch, look at the ankles, look at the forearms. You're looking at an animal that is pushing the absolute boundaries of physics and biology just to survive.
And succeeding.
And succeeding.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Red Earth's fighter. We'll catch you on the next one.